because the last year was a very interesting year. I'm not at all sure it was a bad year for the New Israel Fund. It was an interesting one. It was very bad for many things that we never believed are possible. Only did I tell you 25 years ago that Rabbi Kahana will be back to the Knesset, or at least his ideology, you would have said, Avram, it's a one red line too far. Now it's a 20-some red lines too far, and they're in the government. And we crossed so many red lines, and we did not pay attention to it. So the situation, the circumstances, the eventualities are very bad, are very difficult. But I believe that for the New Israel Fund, it was the best year ever. We got an invitation. How many people you know, how many organizations you know who got an invitation out in the open, come and save Israeli democracy? Not even one. Just the New Israel Fund. And when you get an invitation like this to defend the Israeli democracy, which is based on the Jewish value system, which is actually calling for saving maybe what Jeremy called here, and I fully sympathize with, the Jewish civilization, when an invitation like this is sent to me, I'm coming. When it's sent to you, you must come. Now, to tell you the truth, I believe that God created the world with polemics. Now, I don't know who's sitting up there, but if you agree with me, and we agree with them, and all of us in consent with those over there, that's a boring, castrated, dead world. But if you disagree with me, and I disagree with you, and we sharpen our disagreement in a very constructed, contained, democratic way, something new and Hegelian and fresh is born between us. That's the force of the culture, the tarbut hamachloket, the culture of disagreement of Judaism, which recently evaporated and we are about to reintroduce. So this last year was not an easy year for some individuals in the New Israel Fund. Let's say Dani, for example. Okay, he was very happy, therefore he didn't sleep, and he was very thrilled, and therefore he didn't sleep, and etc., etc. But nonetheless, I love it, because this is the year, I feel, in which the New Israel Fund was born anew. Now, the birth process is something I never personally experienced. I was there the first 7 seconds, and then waited 9 months, and I was at the delivery room. But nonetheless, thank God we adopted too. Okay. But nonetheless, it never ceased to amaze me how comes that the most beautiful present life can give us, new life, babies, hopes, expectations, prayers, generations to come, this beautiful present given to us is coming to the world with so much blood and so much suffering and so much pain. But this is actually giving birth. And we were pregnant for 30 years, the New Israel Fund, and we are ready for the delivery. The pain is over, the baby is coming. And the new organization for me is an organization which transforms itself from an organization who laid the foundations for a better civil society in Israel, more egalitarian, sensitive, listening and containing one, which was so crucial in the last 3 decades for having the Israel we have today. It is going to be a fighting, defending, shaping, challenging, and initiating organization. It's a different nature, but the destiny is the same. It's a different mechanism, but the values are the same. It's a different methodology and modus operandi, but the utopia must be the same. A better world, a repaired one, egalitarian one, containing one, and a loving one. And we are there, never mind how they challenge us. We are ready for the challenge because the value system and the destination is right, was right, is right, and will be right. Now, it is not easy. It is not easy. I mean, it's easy said in San Francisco, but Shabbat, I'm back home in Sheikh Jarrah, and I'm not at all sure that people will understand my concept of pregnancy and my concepts of tolerance, etc., etc. But we have to understand why we are ready and what we are ready for. We are ready, I believe, and we must be ready for the most challenging, demanding challenge Israel maybe ever had, the psychological one. The one which is within, the one of the nefesh, the one of the soul. Because every war we had, including Yom Kippur War, forget about the leadership, the people, the masses, never thought that it is the last one. There was never an absolute despair to say, we cannot do it, it's impossible, that's it, let's run away. Every war we had declared by external forces, eventually we had the stamina and the endurance and the power to go out of it and to overcome it and eventually to do something about it. But this one is different. Yesterday I was in Los Angeles and we spoke about this and that with people. Came to me, a very dear old friend. He's a Holocaust survivor and he was crying yesterday. And he said, Avraham, I'm not at all sure that this time we shall succeed. This time it is for real. This time it's coming from within. And the enemy from within is a very, very difficult, cunning enemy. Because the threats we're talking about are far beyond threats of war, far beyond physical threats to the existence of the State of Israel and to the existence of the State of Israel. Here you have a tortured, biased, bended interpretation of religion, which made some variations and some interpretations of Judaism, both here in North America and over there in Israel, to the element which is the greatest eroder of the basic humanist values that we all believe in. So that sometimes you talk to people and you tell them Judaism is humanism, they say, what are you talking about? That's a tragedy, that there is a generation out there who does not believe that Judaism stands for the best, most beautiful values of humanism and universalism and patience and reconciliation, because Judaism is about fanaticism. The other one is, we have a nationalistic element in Israel of the worst kind. The same kind of nationalist, xenophobic hydra, which raises its heads both here and in Europe. We have it there as well. It's a shame, but we have it. And this is a nationalistic one which does not respect and do not want to accept the pluralism and the richness of democracy, which respects every human being regardless of gender or origin or faith or whatever. And it is there. And it is in power, it is in the government, it even represents the State of Israel in certain international institutions. And this is an ideological power that denies the very basic Jewish values, which states at the first chapter of Genesis that every human being was created in the shadow of God. And on top of all of that, you find the huge, amazing betrayal of the national experience and the historic commitment that so many of us took upon ourselves, saying, what is Judaism? What is the entire Torah on one foot? Whatever you hate to be done to you, you should never do to somebody else, unto somebody else. And we do it time and again. Things that we hated that were done to us when we were a minority, we are doing now that when we are a majority. And by this betraying 2,000 years of Jewish commitment that we committed and took vows to say once we shall have the power, we shall never go this way. This is the enemy from within. Religious, nationalistic, not universal, and not respecting our past. Now, there are many kinds of reactions. There are the escapists. Those who are living in their own bubbles, wherever the bubble is, the world is perfect, and who cares about the rest of it? There are those who simply surrender, raises the hand, and run away. And there are those who say, we hope, and we struggle, and we never give up. The New Israel Fund is the third. We hope, we struggle, and we never give up. So who is this new Israel Fund? This is a very optimist, full of hope and faith foundation. Now, unlike my mother, when we used to ask my mother, Mama, what are you, an optimist or a pessimist? So she said, of course I'm an optimist. Today is much better than tomorrow. So this is not the kind of optimism the new Israel Fund is having. Because we are a fund, we're a group of people who try to stand against despair and the values of darkness with an alternative which is quite utopian of a better world. This is an organization which does daily what the prophets were talking about. We have all of these prophets, Jeremiah and Isaiah and all the rest of them, and we are the organization who implement the prophetic program for the Jewish people. That's amazing. And when I think about it, for me, the New Israel Fund is the fund of the pragmatical, practical prophets. Very few people are dealing with prophecies in Israel. Very few people trying to shape a good, better future for the Jewish people. This is a foundation which is ready with a renewed leadership that has something to say, has a saying. This is a foundation, this organization, this is a group of people who are coming to everywhere from which the call is coming from. If there is a call for equality, we are there. If there is a call for women equality, women liberty and women's status, we are there. If there is a call for basic birthright liberties, we are there. For progressive, liberal, humanist Judaism, we are there. Religious pluralism and spiritual tolerance, we are there. Peace, we are there. Civil society, from Sheikh Jarrah and the women's status to the rights of the Bedouins, we are there. And in so many cases, we are the only ones who are there. And this is a privilege because hope and faith and trust, this is us.